So most of us all were together about a month ago, so I don't know how much there is to share here between us all. Um, the, the CERN stuff there was pretty awesome. Thank you, Dan and Julian, for that. Um,
Yeah, it was our pleasure. I don't know if we need to go through really in detail. I just wanted to quickly say that there's videos posted there now. If anyone wants to go through, we're trying to work with Mike to get them, or Mike is going to put them onto the channel on YouTube, I guess. But we have a problem on our side. Some of the videos aren't the right length when you download them. So once we fix that, then I guess they'll be posted. They'll be uploaded to YouTube, and yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go into detail at all either, but I just noticed the other day that the videos are up and was going to mention that. And people want to go watch them, feel free, I guess. One thing that I was interested in the topics there was how Tom said they were going to add 1,000 OSDs. I sent them an email and they haven't done that yet. I was just curious to see how that ended up for him. So maybe next time he'll be able to give us an update on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to him before. You have a question there about single large versus. Last time I asked them about this, they have basically like there's the higher level software like Expert D that they use to expose their Ceph pool. It gets complicated if they need to expose multiple Ceph clusters. So that's why they prefer now to have one single large Ceph cluster and just push things as far as they can.
Sure. Yeah. Paving the way for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's also just like a general thing to like anybody else who had input on that. Like, are you preferring for your setup one big cluster or multiple small ones for what's easier, what's better?
I'm not sure at what point too large is too large, and you want to do that rather than having several small clusters. But we're about just over 3,000 and not feeling the need to start splitting that just yet.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the interesting things with what Tom mentioned, the Ceph there, was it takes like 3 minutes to do like an OSD map update. Are you like noticing that time go up as you get to that 3,000 and more OSDs in your cluster for a map update, or is it fairly still quick and easy?
We've not seen it as a problem as yet. I don't know whether that's just that our monitors are reasonably nippy and their monitor storage is solid state drives or something, but in terms of map updates when we lose an OSD or one comes back, I've not noticed that being a significant impact.
Gotcha.
I mean, on this subject, we've always preferred to keep the S3 stuff separate from the block storage and keep the block storage separate from the FFS. So we don't run any mixed use case clusters, and that's like for practical reasons. So that like with the block storage stuff, you can't always upgrade the clients. So although we haven't had any tunables changes needed recently. But in the years past, we were having to upgrade always tunables with new versions of Ceph, and the running VMs were holding us back. So we separated for that reason. Also, yeah, if you've got different types of users, I don't know how to do QoS with S3 and block storage at the same time. It's basically not possible.
Oh, sure.
And we now have HA proxy in front of our Rados gateways, which we're currently mostly using to stop one particular user or set of users from dominating the service. But I guess we could also use that to tune the level of S3 availability so that it didn't overwhelm block storage as well. But that's not something that's yet been necessary for us. I guess maybe as we're adding more Rados gateways, that might become more of an issue.
Yeah, we have some users that do like infrequent big like they kind of hammer the S3 infrequently, and yeah, I don't think the block storage users would be happy during those moments. Does anyone have anything to say about Nautilus? We just upgraded one cluster to Nautilus last week. So if someone's curious about that, we could say maybe a couple of things.
I've upgraded 2 small clusters to Nautilus, but not my big one yet. So far, so good from my side.
From which version did you upgrade cluster, from Luminous or Mimic?
I did Mimic to Nautilus.
Same here, Mimic to Nautilus, and it's a Rados only cluster that we upgraded. No FFS, no RPT, no S3.
Okay, and did you encounter any problems?
Some small bugs, like I think that any client which is not Nautilus can't run Ceph status. For example, you get this bug about Ceph bool being type. And we have one issue with something like 10% of the time that we stop an OSD in Nautilus, it gives a backtrace when it seg faults, or not seg faults, it asserts while shutting down. So there's something like the deconstructor of the OSD is not cleaning something up, and then there's. And I found a similar bug back in Luminous or Nautilus, or Luminous or Mimic, and they have already fixed it, but it seems it's still there in Nautilus. Maybe it's something different. But otherwise, the upgrade was fine.
Okay,
For
that's
me,
good to hear. But
Go ahead. I was just going to say the upgrade process for me from Mimic to Nautilus was fine. No issues. I haven't run into that OSD restarting bug yet, but I haven't been bouncing many OSDs in the clusters since that upgrade. So maybe I'll try that in my test cluster and see if I get it as well.
We see it when we restart the OSDs to do the stats conversion or whatever it is, like it gives a warning after Nautilus upgrade saying that the blue FS stats are the old version or something, and you have to convert them offline. Yeah. So when we do that conversion, we scripted the conversions across our whole cluster, and something like 10% of the OSDs gave a seg fault, gave an assertion.
I don't recall having that when I rebooted for that Blue Store stat stuff.
Probably specific to our workload. Like those things our OSDs are hammered pretty heavily while we were up.
Gotcha.
Maybe somebody tried to upgrade directly from Luminous.
So we haven't done that, but that's what we were planning on doing because our main clusters are all running Luminous, and Canonical are providing Luminous and Nautilus. So we're expecting to try upgrading from Luminous to Nautilus directly, but we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, in our environment, we are also preparing to upgrade directly from Luminous. So we want to skip Mimic. And we are setting up right now a test environment, so I can share our thoughts maybe in next meeting, what goes good, what goes wrong.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah, that'd be useful.
We also will do that similarly from Luminous to Nautilus on one of our Ceph FFS clusters, but we're holding back at the moment because I think there's a known Ceph FFS bug in Nautilus 14.2.4. There was like a thread on Ceph users a couple of weeks ago, and it seems that the MDS in 14.2.4 has a bad like fix and a bad patch in it that was like incomplete, backported from master branch. So yeah, we're waiting until that. So we're waiting until 14.2.5 or something like that before we upgrade any Ceph FFS cluster. Did anybody? I guess nobody's running Ceph FFS on Nautilus yet, right?
I am, but it's just like a small use case of it.
I can try to find that. I'll try to find that in the chat.
Sure.
We're running Nautilus with Ceph FFS and haven't had any issues. Are you sure that was 14.2.4 or was it? I thought it was 14.2. I remember the discussion. There was a quick patch put out, I thought, that sort of undid it all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it now. I will. I'm pretty sure it was 14.2.4 because I've been like waiting for that fix, but I'm not finding it immediately. Yeah, I'll come back to that later if I find it.
Rafael, what are your use cases for Ceph?
Okay, so our company have several Ceph clusters. We have one big cluster. Now it has more than 4,000 OSDs running and 5 Rados gateways. This is object storage cluster for satellite data from European Space Agency. And this data are served to our cloud for clients. And we have several smaller cluster, about 1,000 OSDs for weather data, for our back office data, and now we are deploying new 3 clusters for EUMETSAT company for process weather data also. So we are running mostly Luminous right now. These 3 new clusters will be Nautilus in 42.4 and we are preparing to upgrade this biggest cluster because this is there are some issues right now, and we hope that these issues will be gone with new version.
Gotcha. What issues are you referring to?
Right now, this cluster are running 12 to 4, and I saw some bugs resolved in the next issues, next releases in Luminous with Rados Gateway performance issues. And also we saw some problems with managers when we have some problems on network and our OSD demos are disconnecting from each other. The managers goes down and there is a very slow process for starting them up again because they get a lot of data and they're hanging mostly.
Yeah, network problems are never too much fun.
Thank you, Dan, for link for this issue with FFS. I will check this because this new cluster I'm trying to run FFS too.
Yeah, I'm not sure which condition triggered the bug. It says something to do with client snap caps, so maybe this is only affected. It's only going to be triggered if you have snapshots enabled. Maybe you don't. I don't know if that's true or not. But I'm waiting for 14.2.5. 14.2.3 and 14.2.4 are identical releases. There was just some Ceph volume fix, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I saw.
I can say for sure that we don't use snapshots at all, so that may be why we haven't hit the bug yet.
Okay, good to know. Have you tried, can I take a digression on snapshots? Have you tried them in the past and decided not to use them or just scared or
no, we've just never had a use case.
Okay.
We're sort of trying to move people off FFS and point them more at S3 for our, for the way we try to provide storage to people. We're less local storage and more, more suited to things like S3 that will be more cloud-based.
Are you using like replication between S3 clusters or zones or regions or whatever they're called?
So the way we're arranged is we're actually a Ceph cluster that crosses 3 institutions. It's stretched.
Yeah.
So we don't use any kind of Rados gateway replication.
Okay.
I could see if we can get more people leveraging S3 and if sites came online in the future, that would be maybe a better way to move forward. But our sort of early goal was to try to provide both protocols at the 3 institutions, and so the idea was we wanted to enable CephFS and have a stretched cluster that was all one namespace for that too.
Is anyone else on the call using multi-region S3? We are supposed to try this with some new hardware that we're getting in January. So I guess if we get that working, we'll feedback.
In the last call, you mentioned that you guys were looking, some of your Ceph clusters are like 5+ years old now, where the hardware is, and you're looking to upgrade. Is that what that's for? Replace the hardware, I suppose.
This is something different. This is just more S3 capacity in a different building. Because we have some bigger use cases on S3, and it's just a new cluster. But some people want for disaster recovery, they want to be able to like write to a bucket in our main data center, and then magic happens and it's replicated to a second data center. So,
Yeah.
But we don't want that for every bucket. We want that for just some bucket. We want to be able to enable, like, say, this bucket, okay, it gets replicated without the user knowing, and then other buckets, we want to have them only in one region. So I don't know how that all works. We'll figure it out.
So is anybody facing any big problems with Ceph right now? Bottlenecks? Something holding them back? Guess not. Everything's running great for everyone. Anybody else have any topics you want to talk about? We're definitely not limited to what's in the pad there. It's just ideas to, keep us from stalling out or whatever here.
So I have a kind of crazy idea and crazy question. Maybe I wonder if anyone thought about this before. On some of our servers, we have lots of disks and few RAM. So like 30 disks, 64 gigs of RAM. And I was thinking, so we have already done everything possible to RAM that the OSDs use with the OSD target memory option. But I was thinking of trying this ZRAM compressed swap, compressed like RAM on these servers to see if it helps in any way. And I've already configured on one server the ZRAM swap. So like basically you take half of the RAM, you create ZRAM block devices, which are compressed block devices in RAM, and then you enable like Linux swapper to just like swap out inactive pages to that compressed RAM. And maybe via this I can, I don't know, add 50% more RAM to the servers. Has anybody thought about this or tried something like this on their servers before?
We haven't.
Nope.
Matthew, you have lots of disks on your servers.
Yeah, so our typical servers have 60 OSDs and then 500 and something gigs of RAM.
Yeah, a lot of RAM. Okay. Did you ever try to build something with much less RAM?
No. I guess we found that these have worked for us in terms of like we're using a fair chunk of RAM on them, but we've not had hitting swap issues. So from that point of view, we've just continued to buy more machines with the same spec.
Yeah.
But the RAM is a fair chunk of the cost of the server, but it's not so big a cost that we're particularly inclined to see if we can shave a bit off, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Our new servers will have 48 disks and 192 gigs of RAM. So that gives us a bit more breathing room, but still I'd like to be able to configure more. I'd like to be able to configure more, give the OSDs more memory and compress it if that's used.
So this is RAM, but that's just taking a section of memory and basically compressing it and then serving it as a swap device.
Exactly.
Oh.
On Ubuntu, you can just apt install zram-config, and you enable a systemd unit, and it does it. It takes half of your RAM and turns it into a compressed RAM swap device. So yeah, these machines have my machines have no spinning disk or SSD swap. They just use this this RAM swap thing.
Yeah. I try this on my laptop. I always out of memory.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I found out about it on my laptop. I saw this feature and I thought,
That's an interesting idea. That could be worth trying. My solution to some of our early gen servers for stuff when we were low on memory and swapping, I just added more memory. Now I buy way more memory than I need just to avoid issues. For the last stuff I've been buying has been 192 gig for 24 disk, maybe. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's outside of our budget. Yeah.
156 for 24 disks. The 12 terabyte disks. So if you beat up Dell long enough, they tend to give you good prices.
Yeah, but they'll give you a better price with half the RAM. What do you put in the block.db? What do you use?
You broke up a little there, but you're saying?
I'm just wondering what you guys use. If you're buying stuff now, what do you use for the RocksDB?
File store.
We use NVMe cards.
So what kind of NVMe card? And how many?
Now you're asking.
Just roughly.
We have a pair of them. I think they're 2 TB each, so that's 30 partitions per NVMe card.
Okay.
So if you have a pair of them, do you RAID the NVMe cards for redundancy there, so it's not a single point of failure, or do you split your drives, 30 on one, 30 on another one?
No, so we have 60 OSDs in the box, and each of them gets one partition, which will be on one or other of the cards. So where we've had an NVMe device fail, we've just had to rebuild that 30 OSDs. But that's we've got enough redundancy in our cluster that we can just do that. And at the risk of tempting fate, we've only had one NVMe card go south so far, and we do monitor their wear.
Yeah. How fast do they end up wearing? Depends on workload, but it's just kind of curious.
No, they seem that I think at the moment the most worn of them is still got like a 95% of its wear life left, and that's after a couple of years of use. So I expect we'll probably end up replacing them before they get anywhere near the end of their rated wear life, if you see what I mean.
I can give a data point on the NVMe Wear too. We've got a kind of a similar situation where we have 4 NVMEs in a node, 60 disks, so 15 OSD DB devices per NVMe, and before that, file store. We started with file store, 4 years ago, and our oldest, 4-year-old NVMEs are down to about 60% of their available life. So, yeah, I think we're, lifetime should be plenty, at least in any enterprise class NVMe device.
And if you came from using file store with those same devices, they probably saw a lot more writes. You had the journal on there than they do now with using BlueStore and just putting the block to be on it, right?
I suppose so, yeah. File store used to be pretty bad about amplifying writes, isn't that true?
Yeah, because everything will get written to the journal, and then from there to the main storage OSD.
Right. No, there's small NVMEs too. Like the first ones we bought were 400 gigabytes a piece. And over time they've become larger for the same price, just naturally. Of course, now they're too small for BlueStore because you need some. I don't know if you've followed the discussion on that on Ceph users at various times of where you need some multiple of like the RocksDB levels in order to be effectively used, and if you can't fit a whole level, I think it's like 30 gigabytes and 60 or 30 and 300 gigabytes something are the sort of cutoff points, and if you're in between that, it doesn't. You just don't use your NVMe space. You get a warning on the cluster about spillover. I heard though they're working on making it more. I heard they're working on a more effective allocation for that in upcoming versions. So it's not so critical that your DB exactly fit, one of those RocksDB level sizes.
Yeah, I think that's what Sage is talking about when he talks about sharded RocksDB. So you can run several RocksDBs and then it'll fit them into the space you give them.
Well, that's good. We sized our newest purchase this year. We kind of went by the discussion of the level. One of the levels is 30 gigabytes, but leave space for compaction, so assume 60 gigabytes. So we sized for that, but we have some space even above that just because that's the sizes they come in. So if they do sharding at some point, then we have a little extra space that could leverage that.
In our big cluster, we developed a workaround for that. We configure the RocksDB options to fit our partition of NVMe device. And then we have a running job in our CI/CD, which are compacting offline the device until it fits the NVMe partition only. And you have to have enough copies to be sure that when another drive will fail, that you have still data. But it works for us right now, but we are waiting still for the bug fix for this spillover.
For us, we've only got some nodes that have this issue, so I guess we just decided to let it be and disable the warning, like our earliest batch of purchases.
Okay, in our the biggest cluster, this with 4,000 OSDs, we have about 1,000 OSDs with spillover.
Oh.
So it's a little number.
Is anybody doing hyperconverged where you're sharing your compute and storage, same nodes? Have you considered it?
We're doing that. We have an HPC cluster running in jobs, and then there's four OSDs on each of those nodes. It's like
Okay.
maybe 300 nodes like that. I have it right. Maybe half that. I don't know. Yeah, it seems fine. There's no technical problems. I haven't seen any technical problems. We reserve enough. We configure the HPC cluster so that it doesn't use all the RAM on the stuff. The users like really hammer the CPUs on those machines, but it seems okay anyway. Like nobody complains about CephFS being slow. This is with CephFS, by the way, with the kernel mount. And I mean, the bigger issue is that we have two different teams in our department, like one for storage, one for HPC, like Slurm support. So it's like getting the operations working between our two groups is the bigger problem. Because they want to reboot things, and we have to like do things in the way that will work for Ceph. You know.
I was wondering about that too, if like nodes need to be rebooted or, crash occasionally, if that causes problems for that sort of setup.
So we have like once a week, OSDs will go down. They'll reboot. They're aware that they shouldn't like shut down, half the cluster all at once, which they would normally do in the past. Oh, and by the way, on this cluster, we had some maintenance on our like cooling or something, and we had to power off this whole cluster. So that was interesting. Mm-hmm. There's a CephFS option to like power off the cluster before you actually turn off the servers, and it flushes everything from the MDS to make sure that there's nothing left in RAM or whatever, and it was fine. We turned off the CephFS, we shut down the OSDs, and then turned them back on and everything.
Yeah, there's a university nearby to me that they've been talking with them about. They want to do a similar setup to that, a CephFS that runs on top of their compute nodes with like 3 or 4 OSDs per node and maybe like 100 or 200 nodes, I think.
I think it'll be fine. If you have very small clusters, then there's some kind of memory issue where like if the client and the only OSD are on the same machines, there's some weird kernel race condition that can happen. But if you have large clusters, then the probability that you're reading from the OSD that you're sitting on is usually quite low. So it's never happened to us.
I'll let them know that's working well for you, and maybe that'll give them some confidence. They were doing the HTCondor status learn for their scheduler.
Yeah, it's the same here.
I'm thinking of trying a little bit of that, like putting a Condor start D on some of my Ceph nodes, because they're a bunch of CPU that's idle a lot of the time. But probably only allowing it to use a fraction of the available CPU or memory.
Yeah, we don't use C groups or anything like that. Like that was we reserved that. Like we figured out the configuration to do it if needed, but we haven't needed to.
Yeah. I think in the Condor config, you can just set your resource limits in there as well. So that way Condor, I mean, you say 50% CPU, 50% memory or whatever, and then it honors those limits internally via its D grouping. Anybody else got something to chat about here?
Not this time.
Okay. Suppose we can wrap it up. As for the next one, it'll probably be in January, because we're doing every other month, and every other month ends up on Christmas Day. Going to happen, so probably plan for January. I'll make sure Mike has it on the Ceph calendar and without a reminder at some point.
That sounds good. Thanks again for organizing them.
Yeah, no problem. If nobody's got anything else, thanks for joining in, and we'll talk to you all in January.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Bye.
Bye.